Okay, so we went there with Muti and Chaz, and this was a fabulous. It was a very small, pizza joint, and something like this. I don't know, 4 meter to 4 meter or something like this, and on the walls you could see, pictures of Hollywood stars eating there. So it was fabulous, and what I realized that the guys serving there and those cooking in the kitchen, they all spoke Spanish. Quiero pizza, hermano, something like this, and I that was a kind of I don't know illumination for me, because there aren't so many, as far as I know, Spanish-speaking people. Or at least I thought. Because last time, a couple of days ago, I went to a clinic, and there I was talking to a nurse, and he told me that there are Spanish-speaking club at Iowa Public Library, which is good to know because I've been trying to learn Spanish lately, and I would like to thank Habib for having me as company in French and sometimes in German. So. That's all I have to say. I'm really happy to be here with you writers from different parts of the world. I thank you all.
Thank you, everyone, for wasting your time to come and listen to us. I'll try to read through this quickly because there's so much memory I have of my time here. So I'll try. Yes, I know. So I'll have to be very quick. 4 minutes starting now. Okay, fine. If I am to be honest, I've been to America before on more than one occasion. During those previous visits, I also, as I am now, documented my experiences, feelings, and opinions of the diverse landscape that is the United States of America. Often, following those previous visits, my inclination was to find some quirky stories, humorous even, that captured the idiosyncrasies that not only proved how interesting, strange, and bizarre this home of the brave and land of the free is, but also demonstrated how lucky Americans were to be living here. Even though you may not get that impression when you watch Fox News or CNN. This recent sojourn through the quintessential Americana has been no different. There have been many images and experiences I've had that will stay with me of my time journeying through the neon sprawl of New York's Broadway and the Midwestern charm of Iowa City, and each warrants its own telling. I could write about the time under New York's night sky. Actually, I was with Fari that night. I was approached by a misty-eyed blonde in a black overcoat with a crooked smile that looked misplaced on her pale face, who asked me, rubbing her nose surreptitiously, "Could you score me some blow?" I wonder if she asked me that because I'm black, or that maybe, just maybe, because I was clad in my hoodie and toque, I looked like a drug dealer. I could write reams and reams of paper about how America should be henceforth referred to as the small print country, where the publicly displayed item prices are not tax inclusive for reasons that remain a mystery to me. Every medicinal advert has side effects that sound worse than the disease, death being a side effect in one case, and terms and conditions apply to the most mundane things. I could write about the time during a street reading, a complete stranger, after listening to my short story, came up to me and thanked me for entertaining him before planting $25 in my hand. Embarrassed and unsure of what to do, I asked the stranger his name, to which he replied his name was Logan, and he was a 911 dispatcher. Wherever he is, I want to thank Logan, and I want him to know that I'm grateful to him, not just for the money, which was promptly spent in the Target around the corner, but because he restored my belief in my belief that fiction for the masses is not only possible but laudable, and that if you give people a good story, they will listen, read, and hopefully pay for it. There are many experiences I've had that could easily qualify to be sculpted into the mosaic of my images of America. There's blah, 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 blah. I'll try to skip quickly because of time. This experience, but there's another experience which, if I do not mention, would be an insult if I don't mention it. This experience was accumulated not in the rolling cornfields of the Iowa countryside or the rain-drenched streets of the Big Apple, as memorable as these may be. This was faced in the battlefield of the breakfast room. The writers understand what I mean. In the intimacy of the Shambo readings, in the inquisition of the international literature classes, the insights of the Friday panel discussions, and the camaraderie during weekly grocery runs, and the silent meditations when the end credits rolled during the Sunday morning movies. For it is in these places of habit and regularity I came to listen and discover the diversity of my new writing community. I came to know of the soft-spoken Israeli writer, with a weird fascination with Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, and an even weirder writing process of, shall we say, the culinary variety. Her soft-spoken exterior buries a complex mind that somehow manages to find that delicate balance between Jewish orthodoxy and her brand of feminism, and yet she still chooses to believe. I came to know of a 74-year-old Algerian sage poet and self-proclaimed anarchist who always seems to have a mischievous grin as if he knows something about me that I don't, while walking with a sprightly gait of a much younger man to enjoy his jacuzzi and sauna at an ungodly morning hour at the recreational center. I came to know of the struggles of a Hong Kong playwright, a Burmese poet, and a Turkish translator, the one who you just saw, whose plays, verses, and prose that we have had the fortitude to freely listen to could actually put their lives and those of their loved ones under surveillance or worse by oppressive totalitarian regimes in their home countries. I came to know of a Pakistani journalist who, without prompting or invitation, took it upon herself with a humility I deeply admire to tell the story of the life and death of a social media influencer, something that in our fast-paced world would have been relegated to the shadow of the 15-minute spotlight forever forgotten. I came to know of the unapologetically bougie energy of our Ivorian writer and librarian with whom I share a deep disdain Bougie, yes. With whom I share a deep disdain for moralistic fiction, and in whom I can say I found a sister in fiction and a future writing collaborator on the continent. I came to know of the quiet presence of our Mexican writer, whose smallish frame and modest demeanor veils not just a passion for Mexican traditions that celebrate the beauty of death, but also a treasure trove of horrific human stories of how the drug cartel have shaped the lives of ordinary Mexicans. One wonders what her eyes have seen and what strength it takes for her to dare to still hope. I could tell more of each writer in turn if I had time, be it the patriarchy-busting literary flourish from Poland and Greece, the disciplined creative experimentation from Lithuania, the mutual zeal for the fantastical, the macabre, and the existential indifference of the universe from Guyana, the journalistic pursuits of our tireless magazine editor from Uzbekistan, the tender pursuit of peace and serenity through the ancient art of yoga from South Korea, the bubbling enthusiasm from Dubai, punctuated by etc., etc. This diversity of persons, encounters, and impressions have, without my consent, formed a unique stitch in the tapestry of what will forever remain for me the image of America and part of my story as a writer. In a funny roundabout way, one would wonder where else would it be possible to share with such minds and talents and eccentrics, if not in this gloriously eclectic and chaotic country that takes for granted how good it has it and prides itself as being a melting pot of cultures, peoples, and ideas. But it is in this melting pot, in this city on the hill that seems to be held together by string and duct tape, that I hope that I have not only found a community of writers who understand my literary neurosis, but I have also formed a family of friends who understand why the blank page is one of the most terrifying things in the world. Thank you.
And I'm a proud bourgeoise, I will tell you. When I was selected for the international writing program, and my friend said, "Where are you going?" I was like, "Yes, I'm just going to Iowa. Like, this thing does not matter." When in fact in my heart I was dancing and singing like I am going to Iowa City. I have made it as a writer. And this was confirmed here, actually, being with these wonderful and talented writers, and there is, I think when I'm in a company of writers, my heart goes back to its rightful place. It sits here in my chest, as opposed to being here. Because writers are weird, yes? We think we are, like by ourselves, we are introverted beings, we are in our rooms, creating these people that are more fun than real people. We are busy staying in, reading and writing, and we really do not want to interact much unless you are more interesting than the people we are reading about in our books. And talking of reading, and it is great that we're in a library. I love libraries. Libraries are sanctuaries for me. They are my church, my mosque, my sacred forest. And last time, as I stood in front of the shelves of the Francophone African literature at the University of Iowa, I marked a pause and I understood why on these visa application forms, they always ask you, do you have ties to your countries of origin? Because as I stood there, I thought, and as I looked at all these books that are out of print in my country, you know, books written by the first women novelists that I can no longer find in my country because they are out of print, and some of these writers' names have been shrouded in obscurity, and I found these books there, and I could touch them and read them. And I had to really think really quickly of the ties that I do have in my country. And I realized that I have a daughter and a library, and no, despite the fact that I have a visa that goes up to 2026, may I hasten to add. So even if I were to disappear somewhere in Chicago when the IWP staff member dropped me at Cedar Rapids and said, bye, Edwidge, it was lovely, and I arrive at Chicago, I still will not be an illegal immigrant, at least for the next 5 years. But I will not stay, yes? Do not worry. State Department, if you are listening to this, no. I shall go back. But I love being in libraries. I love being surrounded by books. And unless you are more interested than anything I'm reading, I'd rather stay with my books. Thank you.
I can't improvise, yeah, like Muti or Edwidge. And, well, I have so many things to say about Iowa, about our writing program, but maybe I'll do it after that. I have just the impression I wrote my first travel in America, and when I was at the border police of Constantine. I had just returned from New York, my first trip to America. It was in 1996. At Constantine Airport, the policeman looking through my passport came across the American visa. He put the passport down and looked at me. After a moment of silence, he sighed, American. I said nothing. He shakes his head. Have you been to America? I answer, in New York. He shouted, wow, New York. He sighed again. You are vanished. What is it like there? What could I answer him? What did he expected me to say? I was cautious. I said, it's very big. I guess so, he says. But what did you see? Is it like in the movies? CinemaScope, I said, laughing. Saying that he was waiting for more details, I continue. In New York, you never see the sky because the skyscrapers are so high. The distances are unimaginable. When you take the bus, you'll be there for hours. It's not Constantine. But here we have at least the vestige of the past. You talk about vestige, he resorts. Everything is dilapidated, ruins, rat holes. I like modern things. And the Americans, are they racist? Not at all, I say. Besides, I only met Arabs cab drivers, American but Arabs. Over there, everyone say bienvenue. That means welcome. They are very helpful. You're not telling me a lie? And Harlem. Have you been to Harlem? How are the blacks treated there? Yes, I have been. In some places, I was the only white person there. So it was strange. But it's not the 60s anymore. It's not the time of Malcolm X. The film is historical. The reality of now is different. Times have changed. Only in this damn country nothing changes, he growls. If I were you, I would have stayed there. Didn't you meet a woman who could do the paperwork for you? I didn't stay long enough. You know, over there, the girls aren't as easy as in the movie. My eye, he said. Well, here, take your passport. Basically, I had nothing to say about New York or America. I could have told him about Lorca and his poetry in New York, but he would have taken it the wrong way. I was flabbergasted, but I didn't have the words to express my flabbergastedness. What I could say about America would have been banalities and cliches. Oh, wild North America, the poet had said. My man would not have disapproved his head stuffed with Western and gangster movies. Thank you.
I think it's nice to speak after you, Habib, because, well, actually, I want to tell about a tiny moment that started with you in this room last week. I was talking about biblical Sarah, and after that, I have a little conversation with Habib about the way in the Quran you see Sarah. It was very interesting. It made me thinking a lot. And when I walked to the hotel, the first time saw that there is a Catholic studies center. And then I started thinking about the New Testament and how they see Sarah and the Bible and all the ancient story. And I thought how everything is combined and the similarity between the religions. And I remember I felt like a pure moment of understanding, and I felt so good. And in this moment, I crashed over the walk side. Really, some people ran to me, "Are you okay, ma'am? Are you okay, ma'am?" And then, of course, I wasn't okay, but I jumped on my feet, the humiliation. And I said, "Yeah, everything." And I walked slowly to the hotel. And then I started to think, okay, why did it happen? I mean, I had such a pure, beautiful, open-minded moment. And then I thought it wasn't correct. I mean, I had this pure moment of the similarity of the religion. But a second after that, there was like a little voice that thought, oh, Sarah, you're so advanced, you're so open-minded, you're such a big lady, you're such an important thinker, you're going to write about it. And I think in this moment, I fell and crashed. And of course, then I thought, Sarah, you're such a judgmental about yourself. And then it was, I started combining everything. But for me, this was a tiny moment of pure, the talking about the biblical Sarah, and then thinking about the Quran and the New Testament, and then the vain, the arrogant, and the fall, and then jumping on my feet, and then telling you that. For me, this was a pure moment. So thank you all.
Hi, so nice to see you all here. I just want to tell you about my trip to Walmart. Because every week we go to do some grocery shopping, and usually James, who takes us, he asks us where we want to go, and we always want to go to Walmart for some reason. And a few weeks ago, I was there doing my groceries, I finished. I was queuing for a cash register. And there's a guy in a queue with me. And he seemed really nice. Like, people here are nice. They smile at you. They chit-chat with you, right? So he looked at me, and I was in this jumper. And he went like, oh, you're from Iowa. And I was like, no, I'm for a residency here. And he went like, oh, you're a doctor. And, you know, never have I seen a smile disappearing so fast from someone's face, being replaced by sheer disappointment, when I tried to explain to him that I'm indeed not a doctor from Iowa, but a writer from Poland. But he was a nice guy, so he listened to me, and he seemed preoccupied. And like, looking at me, you know, being a writer is bad enough, but then you're from Poland on the top of it. So I thought that he was thinking about it. I saw that he was thinking about it, and then he went, oh, maybe you should try applying for a working visa so you could stay here. And, you know, I was like, automatically I answered, oh, no, I don't want to stay in the United States. And he went silent, looked at me, and just repeated my words, you don't want to stay in the United States? And he didn't talk to me after that. He just went away. So if you ever hear a story about a crazy lady from Walmart, this is my version of it, the original one. But it's true that I don't want to stay in the United States of America. I want to go back home. But at the same time, I don't want to leave Iowa City. And even though those feelings seem to be contradictory, I think they are actually, they complete each other, in my mind at least. And this comes from also a contradictory feeling in me towards the United States of America. Because when I was growing up, I'm from the first generation that grew up in capitalism and democracy in Poland. And my parents, when they were growing up, they were still living in the communist regime where there was no access to capitalist goods. So America was really this stereotype of dream and paradise. There was a lot of illegal immigration from Poland to the United States. I think every family had an uncle or an aunt who was living in the United States and sending packages. And I had my uncle there in Chicago. And, he left Poland in the 80s. So he remembered the economic crisis, and he didn't get a chance to go back to see what changed. So when I was a child, he was really nice. He was sending packages to us, but he was sending them according to what he remembered Poland was like. So we received packages. I was very excited for them as a child. And then there was toothpaste inside of it, and cacao, tea. And we were really ashamed to tell him that, we don't need that, because he seemed really happy that he could send those to us. So we were just receiving regular cacao from the United States of America in the 90s. And having said that, I must admit, sincerely, that I spent quite many years trashing America and Poland, which means I was trying to dismantle this American dream, because I think that any kind of idealizing stereotype is bad. I even studied American studies for 3 years. I went for a study tour here in America like a few years back with the university from Krakow. I had a chance to see the poverty centers, to talk about opioid crisis, about health insurance crisis. So I was very aware of the American issues, and I've spent so many hours trying to explain to my mother how it is, and she never believed me. Like, she was, oh no, you must have understood it wrong, and it's for sure not like that. So she's still unconvinced. But having said that, I think that my stay in Iowa City here, which is so accommodating, and it's such an exceptional place in a way, you're very lucky to live here, to work here. I think it rebuilt a little bit of American dream in me. And once again, if you ever hear a story about this lady from Walmart, just say hi to the guy from me.
we had the same packages in Greece as well, every summer. It was usually socks. Many socks every year. So I want to talk about the American dream as well. I left the US 12 years ago. I had spent almost a year in New York, and I left as a waitress on a tourist visa. And I came back as a writer invited by the State Department. Yeah, I know. Well, FYI, I made more money as an illegal waitress than I make as a writer. But now I get to get the glory. So the message in both cases, actually in both cases, I felt I was being offered something by the US. And the message in both cases was work and you'll get rewarded, which for me is the essence of the American dream. So the American dream is a term we use in Europe in a very ironic tone that implies the artificiality of the American life. You know, the plastic, that it's a life made of plastic. I don't agree with this. What most people see as artificiality, I see as a super reality. It's not my term, it's a term by Jean Baudrillard, as an inflated reality, as a reality that's been constructed, yes, but it's been built with like the best materials. In this case, justice, freedom, and abundance, ideas that the conquerors brought with them in the US. But the difference is that in Europe, we analyze life to extract an ideology, to form an ideology. Here, you pick an ideology and you turn it into something material. So once you have a tangible thing, an idea is not a promise anymore. It's something that's already happening. So I sense that this utopia the US came up with, it's being experienced as if it's already here. It's a reality. I'm going to tell you the examples I have encountered in the US. You know these examples. They're the intimidating skyscrapers of New York that make you feel you are in the cradle of power. Then there are the pharaonic monuments of Washington, where you feel you are in the cradle of modern history. And then there's this city of literature in the middle of the Midwest. Like, whoever came up with this idea and got funding for this, respect. It was a great idea. So they were, thank you. They were not cradles before, but they are now. They are the modern cradles. And I feel that America is the real modernity for the time being. Like, the Chinese are coming over, so. It's a country that has invented its own identity. So to do this, you usually have to erase your past. And, okay, the US is a new country, yes, but in a very old continent, as old as the others. People have been inhabiting this continent for like 14,000 years. So when people say that America has no history, I'm like, no, sorry. I mean, it has. I mean, it's the lives of people who were here before. So I feel that it is a history that's been deliberately decided to be erased. And because it didn't fit into the utopia narrative. Right? I mean, you can build a utopia on blood. You cannot sustain it with enslaved hands. I feel that the moment those people raised their voices, there was a crack in the narrative. And with the election of the first black president, the crack widened, and it divided the nation in two. And I feel that what came after that, it was something that, it was unavoidable. So since I came here, I'm trying to understand what's the meaning of the phrase, "Make America Great Again," this time. I mean, it's a phrase that's been used for decades, but this time, what does it mean in Trump's mouth? And my explanation, and it might sound simplistic to you, I don't know, I'm just a foreigner who observes. My explanation is that it says, let's go back to this state of ignorance and eternal white bliss where these voices were muted. Let's go back to, actually, let's avoid history again and go back to the safety of our story. Yeah, that's all. Thanks.
I've been learning watercolor paint. Bear with me. I have always admired good watercolor, the form and subtlety and the suggestive power of it. Similarly, I have always admired the way poetry can be a breeze or a flood or even an earthquake. I have never considered myself a good poet. But being around so many excellent practitioners here at IWP has inspired me. I've been working on poetry a little myself. So here is a poem I wrote about learning watercolor. I'm trying to paint this sunset, right? It's supposed to come out all glowing golden pink and tangerine light, peeking through lilac winter clouds, but all I'm getting is this yellow-brown goo smeared across the grooves of the paper like mop water on a tile floor. So I switched to water lilies. Fat, rosy, soft, predictable curves, lovely, gentle tips, bringing an end to broad waves. Except these things are deceptively jagged and twisted and want to fold around themselves until I can't tell in or out or any other direction. I'm just going to paint mud. Mud can't be hard. I just need slide some random colors into random lumps of, no, wait, this isn't it at all. Mud has more life than this. Its insides layered with warmth. And I'm just here ankle deep in the filth of failure, still wanting to learn. So that tells you a little of how much I've learned about watercolor. It's still a struggle. But these two new ventures of mine are emblematic of what I enjoy most about IWP, the sense of sanctuary and the ability to be alone with my amusements. I am grateful for the opportunity to explore my little clockwork projects. I've come to see this idea of people isolated in towers as a metaphor for how society has had to distance its parts during this COVID crisis. And just as we use them for the preservation of health, towers often protect the creative soul. One of the great strengths of the USA is its appreciation of towers of preservation, whether that is the Brooklyn Museum, the Amana colonies, or just a family choosing to restore an old windmill on their farm as a symbol of their heritage. But the weakness of any system is often the flip side of what it's good at. And if I could offer one gentle criticism of the IWP, it is that Iowa City often felt a little too much like a tower, away from real life. Maybe it's just the shadows of the pandemic that forced us to be more isolated, in which case, ignore me. But in a land famous for its farms, playing in the dirt seems like a good foundation for understanding the people and their struggles and their hungers, which in the end is what we hope to recreate in our towers with our articles, novels, poems, and watercolors. My thanks to the administrators and staff who have been so responsive to our needs and suggestions. And my appreciation to the magnificent crew of international writers who have thrilled me every day with the excellence of your works and the enervating pleasure of your company. Thank you.
So maybe there is not much to say after like this incredible writer like have said about the place and how they've seen it. But for me, like, I came to the place with this image that I will be familiar with it somehow, some way, because I live in a cosmopolitan place, whereas there is a lot of differences all around. And I think it's like a smaller picture of America, and the American lifestyle is much adopted there. So when I came, and I remember when I arrived actually to Iowa City at the airport, I noticed that it could be different. And when I arrived the city, I noticed that it's different because everything is very similar here. Like it's just hard to notice the differences. And it's not an easy thing to be exposed to and to be with where you have to make an effort to find the differences from a place to another, from person to person. And I think we were, for example, in the place we are living in, and even with the way we are exposed to differences in all over the world, especially from the social media and etc., we are easily like exposed to differences without making an effort to talk to the people more, to try to understand the real difference from inside, not from outside where we look different and etc. So in this place, I learned that to find the differences, I have to work more hard. So I needed to talk more to people. I need to listen to their differences more. And this has helped me a lot with, catching the details and etc. So yeah, it might be a very small, notice of, done here, but that's it that I have. And I'm very, pleased and happy to be with all of you in this city that looks different in a familiar way. Thank you.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Yeah, the time is running so fast. I can't believe we just arrived and met everyone and the coordinators, other writers, everything. I have so much stories to tell, but I don't tell it now, don't worry. It seemed like sometimes that my life here was a comedy with some small and big adventures. And it's feels like you are leaving, and it's just starting, you start to know people more, spending time together, going out. You know where Raccoon lives on the way to the fitness. You start to know the names of the lobby people, working in the hotel, and they start to know mine, even though they think I'm Dominica, but it's okay. Yeah, so it's like contact is getting closer and warmer, and it was a lot of writing. I was quite disciplined, and also I had some jokes from the writers that whenever you look through the window, you see Gabi outside writing. But I think it was also inspired a lot by you, because when you are surrounded by people who are writing, talking about the text, so it's also easier to be always concentrated on that. So I am afraid to speak publicly. I just had a shot yesterday, good excuse, from the flu, so feel still a little bit dizzy. But I do believe that, as I said, that it's not an end, even though how pity it would be, but it's the beginning of something new, something bigger. And I would like to thank all the organizers and writers for giving everyone to each other, and I feel it personally a lot, like giving this strong, strong shot of creativity, which I hope will last many, many years. Thank you so much.
I would like to thank all the writers. Because this is being broadcast and not everybody may know you by your wit, I'm going to try and get the order right. Please just correct me if I'm wrong. But we just heard from Fari Öz from Turkey, Muti Nakhlema from Malawi, Edwige Dro from Cote d'Ivoire, Habib Tengour from Algeria, Sarah Blau from Israel, Dominika Słowik from Poland, Alexandra Kay from Greece, Imam Bakhsh from Guyana, Salha Obaid from UAE, Dubai, and finally, who was, and Gabriela Labanas-Gayuta from Lithuania. So our thanks to all of them, and of course to the ICPL staff who's been so supportive and helpful. Thank you for everything for the Fall 21 residency. That's it.